Hello ACST1052 students, this is Shauna and this is our next Excel demo. In this one I'm just going to teach you a few useful Excel functions which we'll be using later in term to build our models. The first one is RANDBETWEEN. This is a function which is used to generate a random number, which is an integer, within a specified range. This will be useful later when we're building models which require simulation of random events. In Stat 171 you'll be learning about random numbers. But in the meantime, let's just choose an example that you may be familiar with, which is tossing two dice. So let's suppose we want to toss two dice and determine the outcome. So let's just put headings, die 1, die 2, and the total. So we can use RANDBETWEEN to simulate the tossing of each die. So if we write RANDBETWEEN 1, 6, this will give us a random number somewhere between 1 and 6. In this case it came out to 4. And similarly we can do the second die. Again 1, 6, and that will give us the outcome from the second die, and the total is just the sum of those two. Okay, now you may have noticed that these numbers here keep changing. Make that a bit bigger for you. That's because every time I refresh the spreadsheet, Excel will recalculate those numbers. That means it will generate a new random number. So if I hit space and then enter, I will get different numbers. Every time I hit space enter, I'll get a new number, new set of numbers. So that can be a bit annoying at times. Sometimes we want to maybe run the experiment 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oops. And we want to keep the results. We don't want them to be constantly changing. Well, if we want to save the random numbers we generated, we just highlight those random numbers and go to Home, Copy, Paste, Values. And then those numbers will remain the same no matter how many times I hit space enter. Okay? So that's RANDBETWEEN. Later, of course, we'll be simulating more complicated things than tossing a couple of dice. We'll be simulating things like the number of car accidents or the number of deaths or the size of a flood damage or something like that, more actuarial. Okay, the next thing we want to do is look at the choose function, CHOOSE. And this is used to pick one item out of a set of items. Okay, which might be, the items might be either names or they might be numbers. So here's one example. Let's suppose that we have a set of cards and we're going to pick cards out of that set. So we know the cards might be spades, diamonds, see if I can spell right, diamonds, hearts, or clubs. We might use the choose function to specify what the outcome is. So we might use a random number. First generate a random number, RANDBETWEEN 1, 4, that picks a number from 1 to 4, and we will then interpret that number by using the choose function. Choose C22, comma, spades, comma, diamonds, comma, hearts, comma, clubs, close bracket. So depending on the number that is generated randomly here, that's random number, it will tell us which suit of the card. So Once again, if I hit the random number generated is 3, then it chooses hearts. If I hit space and enter, it chooses another random number. This time it's 1, and then that means that the suit is spades. So that's just a simple example of using choose to randomly select a number, a suit from a deck of cards. Here's another example which is probably more actuarial. Let's suppose that we have 4 different categories of customers. We've got male smokers, male non-smokers, female smokers, and female non-smokers. And we want to charge each one of them a different premium for their life insurance. So males are, a higher risk than females. So let's say we're going to charge this smoker $20 for their premium. The non-smoker might be half of that. Let's say 11. The female smokers probably about the same as the male non-smokers. Let's say 14. And the female non-smokers much lower. We'll say they're about 8. Okay, being a smoker is very bad for your health. So let's say we have a customer come in and we want to know what the correct premium from that customer is. Well, what we do is we say, please enter which customer type you are. Customer type, we'll call this the male smokers. Type 1. The male non-smokers type 2. We'll just get rid of that extra S. The female smokers will be category 3. And the female non-smokers will be category 4. So if someone comes in and we say, please tell us which category you fall into, and I, for example, am a female non-smoker, so I'll choose category 4, and then we can use the choose function to automatically look up the correct premium for that customer. So that's depending on the value in D30, I want to look up E25, E26, E27, E28. Okay, so that tells me that the correct premium for me is $8. But if another customer comes in who's a male smoker, that's category 1, it automatically recalculates their premium to be $20. Okay, so that's another useful function, the choose function. Later on you'll learn some better functions for looking up tables, but those are a bit more complicated, so we'll leave them till a bit later. The last function we're going to look at in this lesson is COUNTIF, and COUNTIF finds the number of items within a specified range which match the specified criteria, and that probably doesn't make sense, but you'll see in a minute how that works. Okay, so let's give a really simple example. Let's suppose we have a list of numbers. I'll just put down some random numbers between 1 and 10. 1, 3, 5, 2, 3, 4, 8, 8, 8, oops, 8, 9, 7. Okay, so suppose I wanted to know how many times the number 4 came up. I can type equals COUNTIF, and then I give the address of this range, which goes from C35 down to C45, and I say I want to know how many times the number 4 comes up. And 4 only appeared once. If I wanted to count how many times number 8 came up, I just change that to 8, and it says, oh, 8 came up 3 times. I can also use less than or equal to signs here. So if I want to know how many times the value was less than or equal to 8, it says 10 times out of those 11 occurrences we had a value that was less than or equal to 8, or similarly we could say how many times did a number greater than 5 appear, and it would tell us there are 5 numbers that were greater than 5. Those ones actually. Okay, so COUNTIF can be quite useful when we're doing experiments later to check how many times certain events occur, like how many times someone has a car accident, or how many times someone becomes disabled in a workers' compensation case. Okay, so let's just do one final example which uses all 3 of those functions. So in this case our example will be, we have a class of 8 students, and each day the teacher picks one student to write the tutorial answers on the board. Okay, and the student is chosen at random. So to simulate this, we'll just say, okay, let's say we have day 1. First of all, we'll generate a random number, which will be between 1 and 8, equals RANDBETWEEN, oops, left out the D, 1, 8. And then we'll say which student gets picked as a result of choosing that number. So we'll equals choose, using the random number at K6, we'll choose Alan, Bob, Charlie, Dave, Eric, oops, we need a comma there, Eric, Fred, George, capital G, G-E-O-R-G, or Harry. Okay, and we can then copy this down for the whole term. Let's say there's 100 days in the term. Okay, and we have a list of showing which students will be called upon to write their answers each day during the term. If we want to, as you can see, again, every time we hit spacebar, we'll get a different list of students. So let's say we want to keep that constant. We'll just highlight those numbers and say home, copy, paste values, and that will lock in the values that we've chosen. Now let's suppose that Eric is a bit worried. He says, I don't get called upon as often as the other students. I'm not getting a fair turn at participating in the tutorials. Well, what we can do is we can count to see how many times Eric was chosen. So there we go, COUNTIF, and we say what was the range that we want to look at. And then we say how many times did Eric get chosen, and he got chosen 14 times out of 100. So that's